Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Yeah, tonight is a night that I kinda wish I was drunk because it would explain a lot. But for those who've actually been watching, yes, this was supposed to happen an hour ago, a half hour ago, 3 hours ago. But this is what happens when you make promises to people and the amount of time it takes to complete said promise takes longer than anticipated. So for those who don't know, yes, I am married. Yes, my wife owns and operates her own business. And I said that I would help her evaluate some things and make some decisions today and potentially have a talk with someone on a business-related matter. And it took a lot longer than we expected, on top of a few other tweaks and changes and stuff that had to be done around the house. So yeah, when you start working almost 70 to 80 hours a week and you're working 6 days a week and you only have one day off, yeah, everything kind of gets crammed together.
Anamorphic Mind has a good question for you.
It wasn't so much of a discussion of firing. It was an evaluation, an honest evaluation of the situation. And also deciding what the avenues were going forward from this point. So, yeah. It's almost like when you're a business owner and operator of a small business that you never really truly have time off. You're always working on something in some way unless you're asleep. But you're often also sleep deprived. So, yeah, stuff and things like that happen. Now,
All right. At least you didn't have to deal with the idiots at tech support that I did. I still don't have an answer.
wait a minute. You first sent a message to me about that, what, 10?
7 o'clock this morning, so about 10 your time, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was an hour after I had originally called, too.
Yeah, so we're looking at 12 hours already on something that the first level guy just tried twice and said, fuck it.
Pretty much. He tried what it was is one of our pumps is stuck in a canceling the transaction mode.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, if I cycle power at the breaker for like 15-20 minutes, it makes sure that the system reboots properly.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes up canceled still or whatever the transaction stuck on there is, we have to call tech support and have them reboot the gas virtual registers computer.
From their end, yeah.
Yeah, from their end. Now, I could just easily do that myself just by going and pushing the button, but they don't want me to do that. And I understand why, I know what hard reboots do to a computer,
Oh, wait a minute. So you knew the backdoor bit. You knew the way to alleviate the issue quickly, but you decided to do it the right way?
Well, when I'm the manager, the shift manager for the day, I have to play by the rules.
Okay, fair point.
If the store manager is there and she tells me to go do it,
that's a different
tired of dealing
story.
with tech support, then I go do it.
Yeah, that is entirely a different story because see, that's the thing is when you're the one making the decision, it's a whole different ball of wax.
I would do it in a heartbeat, no matter what. But corporate doesn't like it when I do that because I know more than most of the first level tech support call center guys. So,
and that is a wonderful feeling too.
There are times where I just want to sit there and be like, maybe if you got out of the cubicle once in a while and actually put your hands on a computer, you might know what you're doing.
Well, seeing as how you've already had that bit of torture today,
I
How?
watched Picard yesterday. I'm very tortured.
Okay, so we have that level of torture too, but
And I watched Star Trek 5 today too.
you are
I've seen it
such
enough
my
that I can just put it on in the background and it'll jog my memory. Hence my tweet about marshmallows tonight.
and and you gotta love the beans. You gotta love McCoy's secret recipe for the beans.
It's an explosive combination.
That it is. Although, what's actually rather interesting about the movie is Star Trek actually tried a marketing ploy from Star Trek 5. They actually tried to, I guess you could say, capitalize on a device that was used on screen. They actually had a marshmallow dispenser modeled after the one that Spock used at the beginning of the movie. And I believe it was licensed by Kraft, who actually makes the jumbo marshmallows. Which I do have to admit, of all the marshmallow types brands out there, if you're going to sit around a campfire and either roast marshmallows or just do proper s'mores, something about the
jumbo puffs.
Yeah, something about the jumbo puffed from Kraft. They just turn out better. I mean, they must have some way of artificially manipulating the vegetable oil to make it react in the way it does when it's exposed to heat.
Well, all I can say is that I'm a charred kind of guy when it comes to those things. Like, blacker the better, because on the inside it's just
liquid,
runny and gooey at that point. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's nothing like a good golden brown just marshmallow on its own, but there's just something about when you char those jumbo puffs so the outer skin is just black.
Tasty, crispy cancer.
Pretty much.
Well, isn't that something that has come out over the last probably 10 years, that if you eat those charred bits, that black crumbly charred bit from anything that's cooked over an open flame, it increases your chance of ingesting carcinogens?
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I might as well just be smoking at that point too, but
Oh, fair point. But at the same time, some people need to remember, whenever you do something and they're like, oh, it's taken years off your life. Yeah. The invalid, hobbled over, diaper wearing, shit in your britches, end of the life years that are getting trimmed short. Why not? You only live once.
I'm just sending this to you backstage just for shits and giggles for later. It's not an important tweet, but it showed up on my timeline.
And that is fascinating. Wow. No, that's not a great way to promote being a fucking vampire. Like, legit, actual vampire. God damn. No,
well, here, I'll share with everybody else. How about that?
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, no, that the whole day with tech support, I've just been stewing about that. And plus, last week I did a 4-week inventory because it was 4 weeks from the last time I did it. Well, they decided to extend by 1 week this fiscal year for us, and didn't bother to tell anybody. So I had to redo it today when I should have had more time to do other things today.
No, fair point there. But,
I really wanted to just use my numbers from last week, but I couldn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, that would not be the ethical way to do an inventory. Plus,
hey, Peter. Well, that, and we've had several deliveries, and yeah.
Yeah, it would look kind of odd if you're not accounting for the stock that way.
I don't want to know why Jewish just typed that in the chat. That sounds like a talk he needs to have with his son. Do you agree?
If your son is that fascinated by something jumbo, There's something going on there. But let's go ahead and actually give the proper torment of the evening its due course. Just how many issues were there in Star Trek V: The Final Frontier?
Let's see here. If 10 to the negative 17 is less than 1, but still a whole number, we're looking at 10 to the 1 trillionth times infinity, I think. Is that about right? I wish Gio was here to check my math.
About right. And
I mean, don't get me wrong. The premise of the movie, the premise of trying to find God and prove that there is no God, is a great concept for a movie, especially a science fiction movie like Star Trek, or a franchise like Star Trek. But William Shatner should not have directed that thing.
I'm not sure how much of it I can really pin on just the directing of Shatner.
It's not just him. It's this whole script, the writers, and let me pull up that list here. Because
yes, we have a list of blame for this one. Now, to be fair, at the top, because the director is supposed to be overall in charge of the project, Shatner does get the...
Oh, Shatner had writer's credits too.
Oh, so he's double fucked.
Oh, yep. Shatner, Bennett, and Lowry. David Lowry.
Okay. So, little background story for the people who might not be aware of it. Yeah, we get a surprise half-sibling of Spock in this movie, but it actually could have been better served. It actually could have been handled better overall. Because, take a wild guess what the original villain of this movie was actually supposed to be. Do you remember?
No, not off the top of my head.
A Romulan. It was actually supposed to be an offshoot Romulan visionary type who actually...
I like C4's guess.
Chicken nuggets. No, that would have been an improvement over what they actually got. But even still, it was supposed to be a Romulan who actually embraced the ancestral tie with Vulcan and actually was supposed to be the origination point in universe, in timeline, for the reunification movement that we end up seeing not too long after this movie in The Next Generation.
Yeah, because didn't reunification... I'm going to open up another one. But reunification was season 4, wasn't it? Or 5?
4 into 5. It was that... Star Trek, back in its heyday, had a wonderful way of setting up a cliffhanger to end one season and then conclude it in the next season. They first did it with Best of Both Worlds. They did it again with Reunification. And
they did it in a lot of series, in a lot of their series.
Yeah. It was a good way to actually have something going on. Because even with the Best of Both Worlds, technically they did it as a 3-parter. Because you had the Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2 that ended Season 3 and began Season 4. And then the second episode of Season 4 was Family, which took place on Earth, in where we actually start to see Picard interacting with his brother Robert.
Yep.
And so technically you could say that
actually,
was a
Unification
3-parter.
Was not a season ender.
No?
It was
I
the
thought
middle
it
of
was.
season 5.
Middle of 5? Yeah. Ah.
Yep, November 2nd, 91, and November 9th, 91.
Yep. And what year was Star Trek V released in theaters?
89, 2 years later.
Yep, 2 years prior. It was the script of Star Trek V was originally supposed to be that introduction and have that tie-in to TNG in that following season. They actually, yes, once upon a time, they actually used to care about having these tie-ins between the different parts of Trek that actually made fucking sense.
And then you have the episodes before the Unification 1 and 2, the game, with Wesley Crusher and his gorgeous romantic interest,
Leffler.
Ashley Judd. Yep.
Robin Leffler, the ancillary character that we deserved so much more of. But sadly, they couldn't make it happen, which does kind of suck.
Yeah, they had to bring down the raging hormones of all the male audiences after that. That's why we had Unification 1 and 2.
No. Well, and even then, that episode prior to with Crusher and Leffler still had a cerebral side to it. But it did have that youthful banter in that aspect, which, you know what? To me, there were worse episodes when it came to having a romantic subplot taking place. Falling in love with a cloud ghost. So, when you really look at the grand scheme of Star Trek V, yes, it is an odd number Star Trek film, which means
not so great.
You kind of had to temper your expectations. Although at the time, that wasn't really set in stone. It wasn't a steadfast rule of thumb at that point. It was still a work in progress. There was still hope. And they were just coming off of the second highest grossing Star Trek film to history in its run to that point, Star Trek IV. And this is where the movies actually have quite the progression amongst the timeline, because you're not between the motion picture and Star Trek II. You actually do have a sizable gap in time between what we see on screen. But then we get Star Trek II, leading right into Star Trek III, leading right into Star Trek IV with only a gap of, 3 months?
Something like that.
Yeah. They were in the third month of their Vulcan exile. So you only had a matter of months between Star Trek III and Star Trek IV. And then again, you only get a matter of months between Star Trek IV and the reveal of the Enterprise A, which, hey, instead of it being the new Excelsior class, which would have made sense, nope, they keep it as a Constitution class refit. And to anyone who's been in the military, specifically the Navy, are you surprised that ship had issues almost immediately during and after that shakedown cruise, where Kirk kind of
overdid it,
jinxed himself by saying, "Let's see what she's got." As a matter of fact, I gotta, you know what? You gotta give the writers credit on this one, because what is Scotty grumbling about when we first see him on screen in Star Trek V? The condition of the ship, and even grumbling, let's see what she's got, the captain says. Oi, we found out what she's got, and
I think this ship was made by monkeys, or put together by monkeys. That's the opening line to his log.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, and
although you have to admit, the way they wrote the Scotty part for this, McCoy had it right when they were entering the turbo lift. You never seen him happier.
True. He is the type of Chang. He is the type of chief engineer that if the ship is running perfectly fine, he's bored out of his mind. But more what I was alluding to is, it has roundabout been confirmed that the Enterprise A is not a new construction ship. Following Star Trek IV and the events that took place that were the main cause there, which, hey, let's send a giant phallic-looking probe to Earth to talk to some whales. And in the process, it fucked up a bunch of shit along the way, one of them being the USS Yorktown. Oh, has there ever been a more doomed name of a ship in naval history?
Nope. As a matter of fact, I've been watching... my biggest thing I'm watching on Netflix while I'm working is World War II in color.
Great series. That is one of the historical documentary series that, if I want to stay away from sci-fi related white noise playing in the background, that's generally where I go. That or the miniseries Band of Brothers for something a little more colorful in its presentation, but still quite accurate in what it showed, with the exception of a couple characters.
Yeah.
Only a couple, though, which is surprising for the scope of that series. Or then other things along that ilk. But yeah. So for those who don't remember from Star Trek IV, the USS Yorktown was adrift in space, where their chief engineer was working on trying to craft a solar sail to collect enough high-energy photons, from the nearby stellar body to provide enough power to keep life support going. I think they ended up failing.
Anamorphic Mind has another great Navy slogan.
Oh, so true. So very true. And no, well, not just Navy. That one is military overall, because
It's sound life advice actually, but you know.
Well, yeah, kind of like yesterday when I was on with the shills, where I had to remind everyone, don't stick dick in crazy.
He's been there for far too long already. It doesn't matter.
Fair point. But
I was actually over watching the Uncalled For stream before you sent the link, and they were covering another MGTOW and Cell kind of guy, and about it talking about whether it's ladylike or whatnot. And Chesh is like, "Yeah, how many of you women have ever been told that you need to smile more because it makes it's prettier when you smile, etc., etc., etc." And Dick had been in there chatting, so I was like, "Dick, you should smile more because then maybe people will understand that you're being serious or something to that effect." It'll take the edge. No, it'll take the edge off of you hurting their feelings or something like that.
There are some people who have the gift of gab. As someone I know quite well is been likened to a word ninja because they've had the ability to tell someone off and then be thanked for it immediately after.
Then I need training from this person then.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but they can quite literally say some of the most... they can give someone some of the worst news about a pet or about someone else that they know, or just give them some very, very pointed, harsh criticisms, and the person doesn't realize that it's not the glowing review that it's coming off as.
Hey, you just lost $30,000 in the stock market, but things are going to be looking up for you.
Yeah, and oddly enough, with everything going on, people are freaking out because the Dow Jones did take quite the tumble over the last few days.
Yeah, something about a virus that is out there.
Yeah,
coming from a certain East Asia country that's quite large and massive.
Although I do do have to say, some of the numbers coming out as a result of this are quite interesting. Apparently, the overall pollution coming out of that country has significantly dropped. So maybe the forced quarantines that they're doing over there is having an added side effect in a positive way.
Oh, Steve, what did you do to the Facebook gods now? Sorry, he had a tweet earlier today or yesterday that I was reading, and he got, apparently one of his posts has been linked as spam or something.
Oh, jeez.
And he went to challenge it, and basically in that it says, while we aren't able to review individual reports, the feedback you provide will help us improve the ways we keep Facebook safe.
Hang on. When was Facebook bought out by Google?
Oh, I likened it to, let's see here. Let me see if I can find my comment to him. They're trying to reach VA levels of bureaucracy, so someday they might become a government that can destroy dreams. Sound about right?
That does sound about right. But, so, getting back to the actual torment and torture that we self-imposed this past week, and especially the last few days. Now, of the points of the movie that we could really pick apart, and there is one moment involving Scotty that really made me want to round up the entire writer's room and kick each one in the groin. Because for someone with the knowledge of that ship, inside and out, do you really see Scotty forgetting where a overhead conduit is that he could easily knock himself out on?
No. That would be like, somebody qualified on a submarine, like a captain, let's say, forgetting where his stateroom is. It just doesn't happen.
Well, think about it this way. And this will really help the audience understand this, because I will admit, sub-qualification, that is some hardcore shit, because there is a standard that you guys had to achieve that is unrealistic for the aviation or surface warfare aboard a carrier. Because the low pressure air system fittings that you would tie into for breathable air, how many of those could you still locate today with your eyes closed?
On just a general Ohio class, not one of the converted GNs?
Yes.
I would probably say anywhere from about 80 to 95% accuracy. And that's without having to slide my feet along the deck to find the little helper clues, But I think I could even find them all pretty quick and pretty accurately on my old boat, and it's gone through a conversion. So I mean, and things have changed, but I mean, it wouldn't be hard for me to do it. I mean, I'm pretty sure I could go if the Navy called me up today and said, "Hey, you have to come. We know you're not, ready reserve or anything like that anymore, but we need you out here." I could probably go out there and requalify, in a few months. No problem.
Yeah, think about that, people. This is on something that is... Once you get this level of competency in your knowledge of your ship, you tend to not forget it, especially if you're working on it and maintaining it at the way and to the level that Scotty was, because... Oh boy, you really want to piss off a Starfleet chief engineer? Insult this ship.
Didn't the original series cover that?
Yeah, and speaking of those pesky Klingons, do you get the feeling that sometimes they just, that some writers of Trek decided to use the Klingons almost as a proverbial crutch on who to fill in the potential role of a bad guy, because why the hell not?
Well, I mean, have you seen Claw's face? You know, that pretty much is a bad guy's face.
True.
But no, I agree with you that the in the basically starting with Star Trek 3, the Klingons became the token bad guys for everything, all the way up till 7, so Generations.
Well,
Then you go
no.
back to the Borg.
Yeah.
Then you go to the Sona and Starfleet itself. And then you finally get to the Romulans after how many movies?
Well, yeah, in the movies you finally get the Romulans, and that's where you kind of got to give the Next Generation a little bit of credit on that end, because the Romulans were a recurring threat. The Cardassians were more of a backyard nuisance than a threat, but they were still there, and they actually did play off that tentative type of alliance relationship between the Federation and Klingon Empire actually quite well, given the circumstances, looking back on it.
Yep. But I mean, even the Next Generation movies, you had a different bad guy for each movie. You didn't see the same one.
Yeah, whereas let's think about it. Star Trek 6, issues
Klingons.
with issues with the Klingons. You did have a token Romulan in there, but that's also if you only watch the director's cut, not the theatrical cut, which I agree, director's cut fills in more of the gaps in the story, and I don't know why they didn't keep those few scenes in for the theatrical cut, because it really didn't make the movie that much longer.
No, and this was before they were coming out with Laserdisc and Blu-ray, so there wasn't like, you know, a way of having the theatrical cut and the director's cut in the same format.
Yep.
I don't know. There wasn't a marketing reason.
No. But so you have them there. You have Klingons being a bad guy presence in 5. You have the Klingon ship in 4, but it was a different bad guy technically. And then you have them in Star Trek 3, and they also made an appearance at the very beginning of the motion picture. Which back in the TOS era, it does kind of make sense, because this is pre-Khitomer Accords, which
Yes.
Star Trek 6 I still rank as my favorite movie, and I am looking forward to that one in a few weeks, because I actually did a bit of a dissertation on it for a film review class a couple semesters ago. So
I wish I could have gotten a film review class. I would have had fun with that.
oh, gotta love electives.
Well, all my electives were used up when I transferred my associate's degree.
Mm.
I wonder what classes are available. I might have to take a couple extra classes just for the hell of it.
Well, with that, there is quite the parallel. And when you look, for people who want to say that Star Trek isn't that progressive, it isn't that political, bullshit. Star Trek 6 was 92, 91, 92, if I remember right.
92, I believe.
And
let me pull that up.
Not long before was when the Iron Curtain fell. And for a long time, the real world parallels that you had going on. 91, yeah, because 92 it was on tape, and when I was at my grandparents' that summer, I practically wore out one of the copies from the Blockbuster.
So yeah, December 6th, 1991, just after the Iron Curtain fell.
Yep. which there was already sniffings of it happening, which is where, because political unrest was happening elsewhere, and then you had that event happen, and shortly thereafter you get the release of Star Trek VI. So when you look back at the original series crew movies, when it comes to that relationship between the Federation and Klingons, you do have that competing superpowers type of relationship like you did between the US and communist Russia. So it makes sense that around the time that essentially the collapse of communist Russia takes place, well, the beginning of the collapse of it, well, the middle of the collapse of it, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the history of it, which, you know what, I might end up starting a series on that too. You do get quite the nice parallel, because you get very symbolic between the two of the Iron Curtain falling and the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. And how does Star Trek VI start off? The explosion of Praxis, the primary energy production facility for Kronos and the core Klingon worlds. So, major destabilization event. And it was actually handled quite well, and you can definitely see a lot of the political and militarily controlled intrigue that took place in the background as a result. So, Star Trek VI, we're going to have fun with that one because we're back to an enjoyable movie. But, in the meantime, Nimbus 3.
The Planet of Galactic Peace.
And Paradise City being the lone outpost allowed. There's no phasers, there's no advanced weaponry allowed, nothing. So what do? They end up making potato guns and using rocks as projectiles.
Yep. While digging holes in vast fields for what? Some
would say he was a moisture farmer. But that's where we end up getting introduced to the character that we come to know as Sybok, where he takes the person's pain away. And
he's a psychedelic mental health social worker. That's what he is. No offense, logical troglodyte, but he's basically a hippie version of you.
Ooh, good comparison. Although, he does have his own evil streak, as we end up finding out later in the movie. But when you look at that character, how he acts, how he behaves, and what he does, I have to agree with Kirk later in the movie. I want my pain. I need my pain. Because when you really look at it, when you really even just rationally evaluate your own life and your own path and where you are today, you would not be in the position you're in. You would not be the person that you are without all of the experiences that you've gone through, good and bad. You need the negative experiences just as much as the good ones to really round out and make your personal character as whole as possible. Because, back to Star Trek 2, I believe it was Kirk who actually said at one point, how we deal with death is just as important as how we deal with life. So really extrapolating that type of philosophy out further, how you deal with the negative situations in life are, I would say, more important than how you deal with the positive situations and when everything's going good. You tend to notice someone's true nature and true capabilities when shit is going as bad and hectic and as crazy as you can imagine it, and then some.
Yeah. The way I look at it, and this is kind of the way I've always looked at it from this movie, is that is probably the best advice ever given by any Star Trek line. Because if you don't take advantage of what lessons you can learn from the negatives, from the pain, how are you going to grow your character into who you are? How are you going to get to where you need to be? You know, like I'm personally, I don't like to talk in front of people all that much. I start stuttering and stuff, but then why do I do YouTube and stuff? And it is literally to cause me to get past the anxieties that I have from public speaking and get used to it. Because guess what? I'm going into a job field where I'm going to have to do public speaking.
It's almost like you're intentionally trying to step outside of that comfort zone to address what you have acknowledged is not so much a character flaw, but a personal hurdle that you have that does have a
character flaw when I was doing quals. I'll tell you that much. I managed to get it toned down a bit when it came time to my actual qual board, but doing my checkouts in large groups, you know, with other people trying to answer questions, that, you know, I always looked like the idiot. But as I build my confidence up, it's gotten easier. So
yeah, and the only way you're going to get that confidence and have that sort of change is by putting yourself in that varying levels of discomfort to address that issue. It's almost like people who have allergies. The way, from a medical perspective, the way they treat allergies is by giving you measured doses of the allergens that affect you, to force your body to appropriately deal with that irritant in the appropriate way. It is quite literally working out your immune system and your histamine response to get it to act appropriately. I mean,
I should go see an allergist, but I'm afraid.
Oh yes, severe discomfort bordering on pure misery.
Yeah, I have seen some people who have done the pricks on the back for the allergens. Let's just say I wanted to play connect the dots.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the allergy testing, the scratch testing gets to be rather interesting because it's like you can visually tell what the worst allergies are because they pretty much do a grid pattern of the different most common allergy types, be it specific pollens, be from floral trees and grasses, and then also other organic sources like your different pet types and everything. And the way some of them react, it is the worst bug bite that you would ever see, and they're told, don't scratch it.
Factard, just a little piece of advice. What I did to help myself get into doing the videos and stuff, is before I do audio podcasting. So it's not me presenting myself, it's me presenting my voice. Makes it a little easier. So when you do your videos, do like other people do with like either a cartoon avatar or just even what some of the flat earthers do. Make your video and narrate over the top of it. Just a piece of advice.
Yeah. Now, granted, for me, I started out by being voice only simply because I didn't have a camera connected to my computer when I started doing live hangouts, and I figured, you know what? Fuck it. Not gonna hook one up ever because it doesn't add or take away anything from the topic that I'm talking about. It doesn't it has zero impact on what I'm actually saying.
Nope.
So why even bother?
Although, unless you're gonna do green screen like Unirock, don't do like he does. I'm sorry. It's hard for me. It was hard for me to take him serious when I saw his green screen stuff, and well, we all know what happened.
Yeah, some people just 2 words: do better. There are many ways that can be applied, but that is simply my only message. Do better. Yeah. Speaking of doing better, how could they have done better on Star Trek V?
Show more of Uhura dancing.
I actually had a problem with that. Because it was one of those, why? With the
Think of it this way.
With the way the shot was visually set up, did Uhura need to be in that sort of position? Like, I get it. Use her voice to entice him, to lure him. But did she have to strip down and do a feather tease dance along with it?
Imagine those guys that were out on that patrol were just on a submarine for, a 6-month Westpacker med run. And it's nothing but guys on board.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if she's wearing anything or not. That's exactly my point. She did not need to be in that physical state to have the same effect with people that are that deprived.
Yeah, but it makes them want to hurry quicker when they realize that there isn't anything there, or very little.
But but here's the thing: you can give that illusion without actually doing it with the situation that they were in, especially with how quickly Kirk and party decided to pop up over the berm. Like, gotcha, fuckers.
Yeah, but God Auditors answers the question quite correctly. Yes, why the fuck not?
Now, I'm all for creative and artistic liberties when there's with the actual connection to the storyline or plot to where there is utility there. To me, that aspect of it did come off as a bit much. Now, to be fair, and let me go ahead and do this because it is going to be a bit of a spoiler, because there was one scene in particular in the most recent episode of Star Trek Picard that was entirely gratuitous. Even worse than this scene from Star Trek V, which there's been a lot of criticism from a lot of sources on that scene with Uhura. But could you make any other intellectual with the credentials of an actual doctorate and in actual application of their field look any more like a frickin' child from an emotional standpoint?
Are we talking about episode 5? Or
the most recent episode where...
Oh, episode 6, okay.
Yep, episode 6, where Dr. Girardi decided to say, well, I've never slept with anyone who's the captain of anything.
Yeah, I was hoping you weren't going to talk about that one. I was really hoping you weren't going to bring that up.
I mean, we go from ridiculous gore for the sake of gore. Yeah, we get it. It's a gritty, darker time in the universe post-Dominion War. We fucking get it. And then you go to something like that. It's,
Well, I mean, she did just kill her ex-boyfriend. I mean, come on now.
oh, I'm willing to bet they were more than just dating with the way that it was coming off. Which,
Living in, but not quite married yet.
well, and here's another fucking thing. How useless is that fucking medical EMH?
No, he's not really supposed to be medical. He's more of a hospitality.
Oh, no, there are different versions of them. One of them is...
I know there is.
One of them is straight up medical. He is there for medical reasons. And it's a question of... Why would that programming be so inept in that situation at the end of episode 5?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but if as annoying as the EMH is, I would not have the disable command key to any human voice can do it. If there's a legit medical emergency that the captain's not there to make that decision, that should probably not allow the EMH to be shut down at that point. Hey, Glover Mom, how was your stream? I was in there for a bit, and then I had to bail out for this.
Blame me.
Oh, Jared's fault.
Yeah, I'll take the blame. I'm used to
it. And speaking of Picard, I also because I missed episodes 4 and 5, and the link was dead when I went back to grab it. I had to I succumbed to CBS All Access.
Ooh, wait a minute. Does the link in the Discord server not work now?
I didn't try it in the Discord server. I was going through the Kanar with Damar. I would assume it's the same links.
Oh, no, actually, so that link is directly to my source, which, yeah, it's like a 24-hour window. But by then, I've relocated it to the Google Drive that, for those who want to
suffer,
be the masochist that the rest of us apparently are, if you want to watch Star Trek Picard and not necessarily support the shitheads who are ruining the intellectual property, go ahead and use that link that Nightbot has posted and join the Discord server. You will find a Kanar with Damar segment, and you will find Quark's Bar, which Quark, being the thieving, conniving, downright dirt and rotten Ferengi that he is, that fucker has posted a link where all the episodes of Star Trek Picard posted.
Oh yeah, look, it's all right there.
So, with everything that had happened in Star Trek 5, with this one, bit of an annoyance, but not entirely out of the realm of possibility. The Enterprise A, shit bucket as it is being portrayed to be, goes out, does its shakedown cruise, comes back, and Scotty says it needs a few weeks of repairs. So what does Kirk do? Is like, okay, you got double that. And nothing... there are many issues when a hostage situation on the planet of galactic peace takes place. And with where the planet is said to be located, which is pretty much at the convergence between the Klingon Empire, the Federation, and the Romulan Empire, the closest ship available is...
No. It wasn't the closest ship available. It's the only seasoned captain that that Starfleet trusted to go out there and resolve the situation. I just watched it this morning. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right, because Kirk does ask, wait a minute, there are other ships available. Yeah, but none of them have James Kirk. And so, short-handed, barely functioning ship, Starfleet in its infinite wisdom is, yeah, you go there alone. Oh, and by the way, there's also a Romulan and a Klingon representative there, so expect some sort of response from at least one of them. Are they trying to get Kirk killed at this point?
Well, after the trial that they had to go through in Star Trek 4 with the Klingons, yeah, they might be. 'Cause remember, it was an outrage that he gets command of his own ship again. By the way, hashtag I'm still blocked by Steve Shives.
And yet, for some reason, I don't think I am. And yet, we've done a few shows ripping apart a few of his videos, and I have sent links to those to him.
There you go. There's his Twitter page.
Let's see. Nope, not blocked.
You're not blocked?
I am not blocked by Steve Shives.
It's probably because I follow Sargon and several other people.
True. Maybe I should do that. Let's go ahead and find Sargon.
Oh, he's not officially on Twitter.
Oh, you.
Yes, he's not officially on Sargon. Or not on there. They might have, after all the shit that he's been through with his elections and stuff, he's probably gotten put back on there. Or this is somebody's fan account. If I remember correctly.
Rational Sargon is actually stating and making the claim to be the real Sargon from YouTube. Why the hell am I not following Foamy? Let's fix that shit right now.
Somehow I don't think this is actually him. I mean, I could be wrong.
But, anyways, we'll see if that does the trick with Steve Shives for me. But, so, we have not the best material condition ship being sent to a potential hostile situation. And you know what? That shit happens all the time, people. So I'm not really annoyed with that in a sense of realism standpoint. It's just not what you would expect to see from Starfleet.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I will say it. The Kitty Hawk on her last combat deployment, she went dead in the water a couple times in the Indian Ocean on the way to the Gulf.
Why does that not surprise me?
And some people who were aboard her were wondering... Other members of her last full crew were wondering why the ship was being decommissioned if we were still in proper functioning order. Because we were. But they also didn't pay attention to how much maintenance and upkeep and how much it actually cost to keep that ship operational. And I guess when you're a civilization that claims to no longer require currency, you kind of don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. It's like, oh, the ship's busted? Here you go. But then we get lines like this from Star Trek 3. She's 25 years old. Yeah. Sorry, but you have space frames still being viable for over 100 years in use by the Federation. It's almost like around that time they had issues with consistency.
Yeah, this...
Little bit. So, there is one benefit. There is one positive overall that we can take from Star Trek V. Arguably, you have to admit, it took arguably the worst Star Trek movie to give us the best line. Excuse me, what does God need with a starship?
Yeah, that is one of the better lines. I also one of my favorite lines is when McCoy gets on with Spock and Kirk on the rocket boots, and they start sinking, and Kirk's like, "It must have been all those marshmallows."
Oh, that scene in the turbo lift shaft. How many decks was the Enterprise A?
Officially? I don't know, but I know it was. I think the shaft was bigger than the amount of decks it's supposed to have.
Officially, it's supposed to be between, if I remember right, between 26 and 30. Not 70-something. And, NANA, I will say this. For how the motion picture drug on, I would rather have that pure visual porn that I called it during our review of that. I would rather have all of that than the bastardization that we got in Star Trek V.
Huh.
What'd you find?
I'm searching, and one of the references, their little blurb from October 9th, 2011. By comparison, the Intrepid class is nearly the same vertical height as the 1701A, and only has 15 decks in total.
Jeffrey's
the solution I have set up. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. And look a little deeper there. Let's see what memory beta has on it.
Now, NANA, the whales, that was Star Trek 4. Star Trek 5 is the camping adventure and the beginning of the adventurous death wish that Kirk goes on later in life. So yes, I will agree. Star Trek 4, better than Star Trek 1. But Star Trek V did have the better uniforms. I will give it that. But sorry, that majesty of the reveal of the refit Constitution class, Sorry, it just works. Sorry, when you have good enough visual effects and iconic enough visuals that you end up getting multi-movie use out of some of the same footage in that quality, yeah. Kirk kissing Amon. Star Trek 6. Because that made for quite an interesting scene when Martia decided to take the visage of Kirk, and then they fight each other. Now, the eagle-eyed viewer will be able to spot the lone difference between the two during and after the fight. But that is something that we will be talking about in a couple weeks on the next installment when we the next movie review. Because I'm looking forward to that one. I would like it to happen in a few weeks, but at the same time, we have other series and other topics in the bin to talk about, which honestly, I will say this. Part of why some of the topics haven't been brought up is because other panel members aren't here.
Cygnus-X1.net has the deck plan for the 1701 Alpha and lists 24 decks.
Yeah, I thought it was mid-20s. No more than 30, because the Enterprise D was 38 or 39, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And yes, Star Trek V is the one with Sybok, which, you know what? Maybe the writers of Discovery have watched some of Star Trek before, because Sybok was Spock's half-brother, but only ever mentioned in this one movie. But see, that's the thing, CBS. When you do a shit offshoot character like that, they don't stick around. You don't make them the central figure of an entire series. And sorry, Mikey Spork just doesn't do it. Glober Mom, easy way to remember. 6 is an even number movie. That means it was a good one.
Like I said, I put 5 on to go to sleep.
Yeah, 5 and 1 are good to put you to sleep, because 5 had some action to it, but it wasn't really engaging action.
No, it was more of the... How do I want to put this? It was there to drive the story, but only just enough to get you the next... I don't want to call it lull,
It was
but that's
filler.
the best thing.
It was filler. It when you really look at it, those sort of interactions, yes, they moved the plot along, but it really was a lot more filler than crucial to the story. Whereas on Star Trek 6 and the battle scene towards the end, that was actually a linchpin and an actual hurdle in an actual significant part to the story, because it started out with the whole, wait a minute, what the fuck just happened? And it became very much a whodunit for part of it, and then the solution to it. And part of the solution was being able to track down that ship that was the one that actually did it and go from there. But here's a question for you. A little bit of a precursor, because I know this is going to come up when we talk about the movie, but shouldn't the sensor data have been able to determine the difference between a Klingon manufactured photon torpedo and a Federation one?
Plot hole.
So yes, even in the good Star Trek movies, there are still issues to deal with. Then again, expecting perfection is a bit of a stretch. I mean, let's...
How many movie franchises have been ruined by the wanting of perfection?
Let Picard be a fever dream. Let Picard be a fever dream. Let Picard
I hate
be
to
a
tell
fever
you,
dream.
it's not.
No,
I wish the same thing, but
no, I'm not saying for us. I'm saying a lot of the issues of in that series so far would be wonderfully washed away and explained and accepted if they end season 1 with Picard being brought out of a fever by Crusher. By Beverly.
just all I want to know is how do I make the pain stop?
Let it be a fucking fever dream. Because for those who, if you really...
if you're gonna watch them, you have to watch them all, and that means you have to suffer through one.
Ooh, what? Wait. You know what? Here's going to be the last topic of the evening. When it comes to watching Star Trek, which order is the better way? Is the preferred way to watch it in? Chronological by air date, or chronological by in-universe timeline?
You're talking as far as the movies go?
Oh, franchise
Or
in
just
general.
in anything?
Franchise in general.
Okay. For me, generally, I'll watch the TV shows in air date just because it flows for the most part, except for the original series because they didn't have a steady grasp on what a star date was and how they could actually tell the story that way better.
Well, yeah. TNG season 1 still had a bit of a hiccup because if you watch those by...
Oh yeah, there's some that they jump around a little bit.
Well, and actually, that's something that they ended up rectifying then because they caught it afterwards. Because when you look at the star dates that they were using in season 1 of TNG, you had star dates that took place prior to the incident that took Tasha Yar off of the crew, but the episodes aired after.
Yeah.
So outside of a couple instances like that in season 1, yeah, as the air dates progressed, so did the star dates. So you do have that.
And so did the overarching story line for the show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch them in any particular, as far as series go, I don't watch them in any particular order as far as chronological in the sense of the in-universe timeline or, the original series and the Next Generation, so on and so forth. I just watch them whenever I feel the need to, whenever I feel the want to. But getting back into Star Trek before we even had an inkling of all of this, I started with the Next Generation, then the TOS, then Voyager, then Enterprise, then back to Deep Space Nine. That's how I did it.
Oh, so you wanted to wet your whistle in a way that was a positive, and then you wanted to torture yourself, and then you wanted to finish with an appropriate benefit to the end of the process.
Well, the way I look at it is, I grew up watching reruns of the original series, and every episode of TNG when it aired. Deep Space Nine, I never really got into because that was really when I was starting to get into playing sports and stuff with my friends. So I would rather go out and do stuff on those nights because it was what Wednesday night was TNG, Thursday night was Deep Space Nine, if I remember correctly when I was growing up, or was it Tuesday, Wednesday?
I think it
It
was
was one of those.
Tuesday. It was either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. I want to say Tuesday, Wednesday when they were
It,
overlapping.
yeah, and then I just never got into Voyager because that was right around the time I was going into the Navy, and didn't get into Enterprise because I was in the Navy until that. Actually, I think that ended around the same time I got out. But so I didn't really have much experience with them, and then I just never really wanted to, you know.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, my wife's like, "Well, let's start watching Star Trek on Netflix because it's there." I'm like, "Sure, why not? It's all there. Any particular order you want to watch them in?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, let's start with what I remember as being the best, for me, anyways." And then she never really wanted to watch Deep Space Nine, and so I was just like, "Well, fine, I'll just start watching it myself."
Now, Deep Space Nine actually, to me, ended up being the better series of the lot of them because you did have a lot more depth to the overall stories that were taking place. You still had episodic natures, but you also ended up getting that entire season and multi-season arcs in the background. See, Kurtzman, do you see how that sort of thing can be done appropriately?
What? I'm
No.
I'm looking at the Enterprise end date, which is uh May 13th, 2005, with a double episode that did not need to be combined together at all. Went from Terra Prime. They could have ended it with Terra Prime and just
Yeah.
been done with it. But
Yeah,
then they
but
throw in these
they
are the
had to wrap.
Voyages.
Yeah, they had to wrap it up, and
They could have done one more week and let them be standalone.
yeah.
But whatever.
Oh,
That's kind of a fair point. NANA. When I stopped really paying attention to it was around season 3 or 4 as a teenager. So, because again, it was just too melodramatic for me.
oh, you gotta pay attention to Garrick though.
Yes,
Uh,
you do. Now going back and rewatching it all, I'm like, how did I not keep watching this? You know?
well, yeah, well, and I think that's another thing to it is you could see where uh, the youth would be kind of lost and get bored with Deep Space Nine because there was very mature tones in the background driving things. You had the political intrigue. You had the whole thing of a pending war and the Cold War phase of the Dominion War, and then when hostilities actually started taking place, you had a lot of that stuff in the background going on that would occasionally directly impact the rest of the storyline of the series or the episode that was taking place, but it wouldn't completely rain on the parade. And after years and getting to watch other shows and everything, and then going back and giving the series a chance again and seeing how they were able to do that, how they were able to manage those sorts of storylines and not completely muddle the works. Yeah, it was it has aged far better than initially
Oh,
expecting it to.
yeah. And I think with the hindsight of growing more mature, I guess is the best way to put it, in my life, so to speak.
Hmm.
Coming back and rewatching Deep Space Nine gave me more respect for what the story they were trying to tell.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I also think that the series ending for Deep Space Nine is the only one that felt like an actual appropriate ending to the series.
Yeah. Other things was a rush job, I think. I don't think they were planning on ending it, but at the same time, I think they knew they needed to end it and
Yeah.
just didn't.
They didn't get to
Just
tie
didn't-
it up.
They didn't get to tie it off, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they had this wonderful story arc going through it, and then it just kind of stopped. They fixed the issue, and it stopped. So I was like, okay, so what was the point? Whereas on Voyager, yeah, yay, they got home. Yay, they did miraculous things and got home so much quicker. But it was so contrived and so many issues with how and the how it happened. It's like,
And we shall not speak of Enterprise or TOS's demise.
well, they were just cut off at the knees. I
know.
They weren't given the opportunity to even come close to a fitting end. And even with the rush job at the end, did you have to kill off Trip off screen?
You obviously haven't read any of the novels after the fact, have you?
No.
You need to read the Kobayashi Maru and then the what is the other? There's 3 books that all kind of tie in together. Star Trek Enterprise books. So it's reading order. That'll be close. Nope. They actually have some novelization of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually goes. I don't know if this one is actually part of it. The Good That Men Do. It's kind of the point where Trip is being taken off the ship
Mm-hmm.
and killed off screen, and setting up for what he's going to do in the next book, which is the Kobayashi Maru, which gives you the explanation of the Kobayashi Maru scenario.
Yep.
And then into the Romulan War, beneath the Raptor's wing, and then the Romulan War to brave the storm. It's kind of the Romulan War.
Yeah, which is what this series was leading up towards. It was actually what it was working towards, was that initial
season 5
Romulan
was
War.
supposed to be that. And that would have been a great season. If they could have ended it with that.
Well, yeah, and then another fucking tease job. Discovery was supposed to cover the Klingon War, the 4 Years' War, and we got what? Two-thirds of a season.
CBS All Access. I'm rewatching that last episode of season 1 that I haven't finished watching.
Yeah, we got what? 2/3 of a season of that.
Well, Spore Drive. That's all I have to say.
Really what it was is there was that overlap in the timeline between the production crew getting ready to do Discovery and then the fan production, the prelude to Axanar. And guess which one had the fans actually wanting to see it based on the information that was released?
Yep. Every time that I come up across that one, the Axanar one, I'm like, why couldn't they have not let that go through the way they could have actually bought the right to it and came up with something, could have came up with something great, because that from everything that I've read on it, it is a great story to be told.
It is, and here's the real kick in the nuts about it. A number of the fans who were working on the project are professionals in the film industry. So they are familiar with what it actually takes to make a production like this and actually do it well. And they were genuine fans of Star Trek. And if CBS was really concerned about doing things right and not just... and actually keeping the current fan base, the existing fan base happy, while also creating something new to bring in new fan base and expand the fan base and keep everything going. What they should have done when they were seeing the buzz that Prelude to Axanar was getting, yes, they should have bought the rights to the project. They should have kept that production crew and hired them on to complete the project and actually let them draft everything out to cover the lead up to the war itself, and then the aftermath after. And it would have fit beautifully right before the original series. And guess what? They would have been able to do all that stuff and have 0 direct crew tie-ins to the original series, save for one character who actually ended up, it was one of the leads of the production side of it, who was ended up playing the role for what they've done so far, Garth of Izod.
Yeah.
Outside of that character, none of the others showed up on screen in the original series. So you wouldn't have had the high potential for continuity issues at that point. Plus, you have a production crew who are fans of the franchise to begin with. When you have a franchise this old and this steeped and this rooted in actual legitimate love and fandom, that's the type of person you want to give the reins to. Someone who actually can respect the history and not alienate the people that you need to support it to keep the franchise going at its core. But alas, CBS decided to try to chase the dollar and to try to chase the political diversity and all-inclusiveness. And what we have now are very aptly named and monikered STD and Star TP. We have a fucking disease and something barely worth wiping your ass with.
Couldn't have said it much better.
But fear not, loyal viewers. We do love you and appreciate the support that you give us here, and for that I will be continuing to torture myself throughout the entire run of the series. That is the worst excuse for toilet paper. Oh, no, main gun. Great to see you, by the way, fucker. But see, notice, that's why I did not say STP, because STP actually has a useful purpose. Toilet paper by itself has a useful purpose. But Star TP? Poor excuse. It really serves very little to no purpose other than giving us something to rant about and get our frustrations voiced while looking forward to the next one. Sadly, instead of looking forward to the next episode with a glimmer of hope, wanting it, dreaming about it, wishing for it to be better, no. I'm looking forward to the next episode to see how much worse it gets. You know what, Main Gun, you do have a point. Yes, we are not the demographic that they were looking for, but here's the thing. There's a reason why CBS has been very, very careful about how they report on subscriber numbers and viewership numbers for CBS All Access. And it's because if they were to actually break out the viewing numbers appropriately for what is offered through the service and not, it's not going to look good for them for the series that they are touting as being the flagship reasons for it. Because I will put it plainly, I know more people who have signed up for CBS All Access just so they can go back through and watch backlogged episodes of Judge Judy instead of the flagship intellectual property that is supposed to be Star Trek.
Still has better franchising than...
No one anywhere has capitalized on the merchandising of an intellectual property better than Mel Brooks. Some may say that it was George Lucas with the original trilogy, the initial trilogy of Star Wars. He did good. But Mel Brooks did it better. Because
Spaceballs the lunchbox. Spaceballs the cereal.
Oh, no. Spaceballs had everything that Star Wars had for merchandise. But they had one thing that Star Wars never did.
The flamethrower.
Show me a Star Wars flamethrower, a legitimate one, and then George Lucas can take back his merchandising crown. But until then, some of us actually need to prepare for yet another wonderfully long day at work in the future. That starts in about 8 hours.
Yeah, I gotta go make dinner before I go to bed, so yeah.
And with that, thank you all for showing up. If you guys are so inclined, if you really want to have a bit of fun, go ahead and tweet about this episode and let Undoomed know that he was missed. He had an opportunity to join us, but I'm guessing he had other things going on, which was yet another one of the facets of the delay that I had for this. But coming up on Friday, we will be doing Veterans Talk Weekly. We will be taking this coming weekend off for Kanar with Damar. So we will see you all for this wonderful intellectual beating that we're giving ourselves in 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, come on. Someone is making a hockey jersey for yogurt.
Walmart did those football jerseys for Star Wars and various other Marvel stuff that they own, that Disney owned, because Disney places everything on Walmart. Spaceballs should do something like this. I would buy it.
Yes, I would buy that one, not a Star Wars one. But with that, thank you all for coming, and we will see you on the next installment.
Later, everybody.